was also on a bardic night, and there were several tales told that night from the Far East. It reminded me of a story I had read many years ago about 5 brothers in the land of China. These 5 brothers lived in a house by the sea, a very small house, with their mother. The strange thing about these brothers was they all looked exactly alike. However, the first Chinese brother could swallow the sea. The second Chinese brother had an iron neck. The third Chinese brother could stretch and stretch and stretch his legs. The fourth Chinese brother could not be burned. And the fifth Chinese brother could hold his breath indefinitely. Well, every morning, the first Chinese brother would go fishing. And no matter what the weather, he would always come back to the marketplace with a rare and beautiful fish that he had found, and he would sell it at the market for a good sum. And in this way, he kept his mother living in relative comfort. Well, one day, as he was leaving the marketplace, a little boy ran up to him. The little boy begged to go fishing with him. No, no, it cannot be done, said the first Chinese brother. But the little boy begged and pleaded, and finally the first Chinese brother consented. On one condition, he said, and that is that you must obey me promptly. Yes, yes, the little boy promised, so very excited. So the next morning, the little boy and the first Chinese brother went fishing, bright and early. The first Chinese brother swallowed the sea. The little boy was excited because now laying uncovered at the bottom of the ocean were all the rare treasures of the sea. You can only imagine the shipwrecks, the strange fish, the coral, and the fantastic creatures that live down there. So he ran to and fro, filling his pockets with everything he could carry. Shells, coins, strange little minnows and pieces of anemone and coral. Well, the first Chinese brother stayed near the shore and gathered some fish. Finally, the first Chinese brother waved for the little boy to come back. But the little boy saw him, but he ignored him. The first Chinese brother held the sea for as long as he could, but it is very hard to hold the sea. He soon grew tired, so he made great gestures with his arms that meant, come back at once. Did the little boy care? Not a bit. He made faces at the first Chinese brother and ran farther out into the ocean bed. The first Chinese brother felt the sea swelling inside him. It wanted to go back. So he gestured even more and more frantically for the little boy to come back. The little boy just ran farther. And finally, the sea swelled up greatly inside him, and he could hold it back no longer. It exploded out and went back to its bed, and the little boy was gone. When the first Chinese brother came back to the market, and all alone, he was arrested. He was tried, put in prison, and condemned to have his head cut off. On the morning of the execution, the first Chinese brother asked the judge, "Your Honor, please, may I go and bid my mother farewell?" "It is only right," said the judge. So the first Chinese brother went home, and the second Chinese brother came back in his place. The executioner raised his great sword, and he struck a mighty blow. The second Chinese brother got up and smiled. He was the one with the iron neck, and they could not cut his head off. The people were angry at this. So they decided that he should be drowned. On the morning of the execution, the second Chinese brother asked, "Your Honor, may I go and bid my mother goodbye?" "It is only right," said the judge. So the second Chinese brother went home, and the third Chinese brother came back in his place. He was shoved on a boat that was then rowed out into the middle of the sea. When they were far, far out, the third Chinese brother was pushed overboard. But he began to stretch and stretch and stretch his legs all the way down to the bottom of the sea, and the whole time his smiling face was bobbing up and down on top of the waves. People were angry at this, so they brought him home, and they decided that he should be burned. On the morning of the execution, the third Chinese brother said, "Your Honor, may I go home and bid my mother farewell?" "It is only right," said the judge. So the third Chinese brother went home, and the fourth Chinese brother went back in his place. A stake had been put in the center of the town, and wood had been piled all around it. The fourth Chinese brother, was tied to the stake, and fire was set to it. Out of the midst of the flames, they heard him say, "This is quite pleasant." "Bring more wood," the people cried. The wood was piled on, and the fire roared ever higher. They heard him say, "Now this is quite comfortable." He could not be burned. The people were furious by this time. They declared that he should be smothered. So a great oven was built in place of the steak. It was filled with whipped cream. On the morning of the execution, the fourth Chinese brother said, "Your Honor, may I go home and bid my mother goodbye?" "It is only right," said the judge. So the fourth Chinese brother went home, and the fifth Chinese brother came back in his place. They shoveled him into the oven, right into the midst of the whipped cream, and they locked the door tight. Then all the people waited. They stayed there and waited all night, and even into part of the morning, just to be sure. They were not going to be tricked again. Finally, they opened the oven door and pulled him out. He yawned and stretched and said, "My, that was such a pleasant sleep." This was the brother who could hold his breath, and he could not be smothered. The people were just dumbfounded, astonished at this. But the judge stepped forward and said, "We have tried in every possible way to get rid of you, but you cannot be killed. So it must be that you are innocent." "Yes, yes," all the people cried. And so the fifth Chinese brother went home, and all the Chinese brothers lived happily with their mother in their little house by the sea for many years.